Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, a show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And UFC 320 is this Saturday, and as always, Carlos and I are here to break down the entire card, early prelims, all the way to the main event. Alex Pereira taking on Ankalaev 2. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
I'm excited for this card, so let's dive right in. We've got the early prelim opener of Brogan Walker taking on Veronica Hardy, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this opening bout?
Excuse me. I went with Veronica Hardy in this one. I don't believe there's going to be the threat of the takedowns in this one, but I do know that Brogan Walker will sometimes try to get the clinch, and maybe she'll try to going to the ground, but I doubt that'll happen. She wants to stay on the feet and use her kickboxing too. I just think Hardy's going to be too quick, too much movement. She has straight short strikes. Whether it's her hands or her feet, I don't think there's anything Walker can do to see it coming because in comparison, Hardy's pretty quick. Her feet come up pretty quick. Her hands come out fast. I feel like she's going to tag her, and Brogan's just going to have to display some toughness in this one. And I don't really think there's much she could do to answer back because Brogan's just she's a little slow for this fight. Actually, she looked a little slow in a lot of her fights. And the reason why that is because after her strikes, I don't know if she's throwing with all the power she has, but she likes to hang her strikes out there. She'll throw her kick and she won't recoil. She just kind of rides with it and then pulls it back, slowly. She lets her punches hang out there when she throws. There's no quick snap. There's no recoil. There's no back on. And so she leaves some innings, and I think Hardy's going to be able to exploit that. So that's why I'm going with Veronica Hardy. Plus, I don't think there's going to be a takedown even attempted by Walker, so that also plays in for Hardy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Brogan Walker sucks, to be perfectly honest with you. And Veronica Hardy, at least I think you can see most of her skill set. She tends to struggle against people that look to take her down. I think Hardy's going to have the big speed advantage, obviously, which Carlos mentioned, Taekwondo style, her ability to bounce in and out of range. I think it's going to give Walker a lot of problems. And as Carlos mentioned, obviously 36 years old, Brogan Walker is pretty slow. Her striking is not there. And I think realistically, if this fight plays out on the feet, back and forth striking affair, I think Veronica Hardy's speed's just going to be all it takes here to be able to beat somebody like Brogan Walker. Both women, sort of physically about the same height, so same similar reach in terms of their build. I just think that Hardy's just a better athlete overall. I think the speed kills here. And that's really, I think, all she wrote. I've not really been impressed with Walker. I don't think she's UFC level. When it comes to the takedowns, like Carlos mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them does implement grappling. But I think Hardy realistically has shown that she struggles with women that do have higher level wrestling than what Walker possesses. And I just don't think that Walker's going to be able to get a hold of Hardy. Her footwork's going to be too much. Give me Veronica Hardy to get this one done on the feet, winning it via decision.
I kind of like your breakdown on Walker. I should have used it. I just thought it was kind of rude. You're like, she sucks. Oh, boy. Cut to the chase, I guess.
Honest Aaron.
I get it.
And next up, we have Austin Vanderford taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. Carlos, who are you going with in this one?
I'm going with Brahimaj in this one. Vanderford, he does have high-level wrestling. I think he also poses the threat of being able to dictate where this fight takes place. He does have good striking. He does struggle defensively because he does absorb some shots sometimes for no reason because he's in the pocket, but then sometimes he doesn't throw anything, whether he's gassed or he's looking for the right shot. He stays too close while he's looking for an opening. But even if he takes this fight to the ground, I do think that he can dictate where this fight goes, where it's going to be. But I do think that Brahimaj's wrestling is solid enough, and overall, just his grappling, his submission game is solid enough to pose a problem for Vanderford on the ground, whether he's on his back or he's on top. And I do feel if this fight stays on the feet, if Brahimaj is able to stuff some of these takedowns, if Vanderford gets a little tired and decides to stand up and strike, I do feel that's where Brahimaj is going to have an even bigger advantage because he's very patient in his striking. He doesn't throw like just to throw. He's actually pretty calculated every time he throws the strike. And whereas Vanderford kind of just will wing some punches and hope something lands, and then he'll start to go for another takedown. So I think Brahimaj should pull this off, even though, like, I just heard that Vanderford is the favorite in this one. I'm still staying with Brahimaj. I'm just surprised that he's the favorite.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's the favorite too, and that's why we're making Ramiz Brahimaj the dog of the week for 2 in a row, baby. It's a stray dog here out of New York. Brahimaj is a guy that I'm pretty impressed with. He's been on a 2-fight win streak, guillotining Billy Ray Goff, knocking out Mickey Gall. He's got power in the hands. This guy can wrestle, trains with Bilal Muhammad. He's a Travis Lutter student, hence the guillotine in his last fight. The guy's impressive. Ever since he's had that surgery, I believe it was on his neck, he's looked great. You can argue about the level of competition. At the end of the day, he's flatlining guys that he, if they're low-level guys inside the UFC, he's beating them inside a round. So he's doing what he's supposed to do. And when you talk about Austin Vanderford, the guy, you know, I think he's more famous for being the spouse of Paige Van Zandt. Let's just call a spade a spade. I don't necessarily think that he's that high level. I think when it comes to the striking, I think Brahimaj has more power. I think he's on an ascent right now. I don't necessarily think that Vanderford at 35 years old is in his prime. Coming over, obviously, from, I believe it was Bellator. I've not really been that impressed. I mean, so he beat Veretennikov. Veretennikov, to me, again, is not necessarily UFC level. Obviously, he can wrestle, which obviously I think is going to be a main path to victory for Vanderford here. But to be getting 2-1 as an underdog here on Brahimaj, when I think that he is more likely to win by submission, more likely to win by knockout, and ultimately, I think the wrestling pretty much cancels out here. I like the fact that Brahimaj here is a 2-1 underdog. I think it's crazy. I think that Brahimaj arguably should be the favorite here. So give me Ramiz Brahimaj, dog of the week, making it 2 in a row after Cam Royston gets it done for us here. Looking to make it 2 this week for the New York underdog here in Brahimaj, dog of the week. And next up, we have Julio Soriano taking on Nikolav Veretennikov, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. How the hell is this Veretennikov guy above a guy that he just lost to in Austin Vanderford? Explain that one to me, and also explain to me who you got in this matchup.
The first question, I don't know the answer to that one. And the second one is, Soriano, so he should be even further down the card. Maybe he should be a main event at a contender series. Who knows? But I'm going with Punahele in this one. Veretennikov, he's going to have the height and reach advantage, which he kind of does in most of his matchups. But he's able to get the victory in his last fight against Prado. I like Prado. I just think that he should be at 55. You know, he's got a thick build. He should probably try to lose that extra weight and get down, but he wants to be at 70 and gives a guy like Veretennikov a path to victory because he doesn't have a lot of head movement. He just comes straight forward, and that's what Veretennikov needs for you to do. Now, Soriano's going to come forward, but he's going to throw a bomb as he comes in, and he loves to throw it overhand, and Veretennikov's going to be too worried about his wrestling because Soriano's wrestling is pretty strong, so he's going to worry about the takedown. That overhand might come and clip him and put him out. Or if it doesn't put him out, he's going to the ground anyway. He's going to get taken down, and Soriano's going to pummel him there. So that's how I see this fight going. I see Soriano winning, possibly by TKO in this one.
Yeah, I pretty much see this one the same way. Give me Soriano here. I've never been a big fan of Veretennikov. Obviously, him getting that split decision win over Prado was a very close fight. I had it 1-1 going into the third. I do think that Veretennikov took that one, but like Carlos said, you know, Prado is probably a 155er fighting up at 170. He's not necessarily the stylistic nightmare that Veretennikov is, kind of looking for. And I do think that Soriano is definitely somebody who can implement a well-rounded game, whether it be the boxing, the power in the hands, or the wrestling here to give Veretennikov a problem. I think that Soriano's kind of been on the, fighting a higher level bunch of guys that he's been losing to. And I think that this is a step down for him. And I just think that with Veretennikov that when you look at that fight with Prado doesn't necessarily have the skill set to be able to sort of find the chin of Veretennikov. He throws a little bit wild, kind of winging hooks, whereas Soriano at least sets up his punches a little bit better. He's a little bit more measured. I think that he can find the chin here of Veretennikov. And like Carlos mentioned as well, I think that Soriano could definitely implement some wrestling. We've seen Veretennikov in that Vanderford fight get taken down, beaten up with ground and pound. I think Soriano could do something similar if he wanted to. We know with Soriano, he likes to, kind of stand and bang on the feet, use his boxing, use his power. I think that's probably what he's going to do here. Pressure a guy that likes to kick. If he wants to mix in grappling, he can. And like Carlos said, that overhand's going to be there if he does try and mix in the wrestling as well. But give me Soriano here. Maybe even finding the knockout here on the 35-year-old Veretennikov. And next up, we have Patchy Mix. Ugh, don't even get me started on Patchy Mix from that last performance against Jakub Wiklacz. Carlos, who you got in this matchup?
Not trying to get you started, but I am going to go with Patchy in this one. Both will be looking to get this fight to the mat, at some point in this fight. I'm sure they'll take some chances on the feet just to get close enough to get it to the ground. But, even if it stays on the feet, I want to say Patchy is going to be okay on the feet in comparison to Wiklacz. But I don't know, because he kind of froze in his last fight, so I don't know how he's going to look in this one. But I do know that once it gets to the ground, Patch is going to be a problem for anybody, and that's exactly where Jakub wants to bring this fight. Thing is, it's his UFC debut, fighting Patchy Mix. You're a ground practitioner. He is. That's the main point of Jakub's game, is the ground. He likes to go for the submissions, likes to go for control. So does Patchy Mix. So I would just think that Mix, probably being the higher credential of the two, is going to smother him. And, it's going to be a learning lesson for Jakub. And I think he's going to start trying to, fine-tune some of his stand-up game after this. But, yep, that's who I'm going with, Patchy Mix. Go ahead, man. You can yell at me.
No, I'm going with Patchy Mix as well.
Okay.
I think it's really hard to be confident after seeing that last fight in Patchy Mix, but I think when I watch tape on Wiklacz, or however that name is pronounced, that he just looks like an idealistic, stylistic matchup here. It looks to me like what they've done is they've got a guy that, he shines on the ground. He wants to get fights to the ground. He'll scramble on the ground, and I think that's where Patchy Mix is going to have success. He won't necessarily have to maybe even shoot takedowns, because I think maybe Wiklacz is going to look to get this fight to the ground himself. If Patchy Mix decides to have a stinker like he did in his last one and just stand and trade and kickbox with zero head movement and just really not even stick to the main game plan that got him to this point inside the UFC, then the guy's a fucking idiot. But I think he will mix in grappling. I think this will be a mostly grappling affair. I think Wiklacz is definitely a guy that's going to look to say, hey, I can also grapple. I think Mix is the better grappler overall, and I think the UFC knows what they've done here. They've given Patchy Mix a winnable fight where the guy's going to basically take the fight where Patchy Mix shines the most. Not confident. Do I think Patchy Mix is talented? Yes. Do I think that it was kind of a stinker in his last one? Absolutely. Do I think that he pulls this one off? I do. But who knows? Maybe he comes in here and doesn't decide to grapple at all, and the guy's just, punch drunk at this point. But I think that Wiklacz is definitely game to mix in some grappling here, and ultimately I think Patchy Mix is the better grappler. So I'm going to say that he finds the submission and gets this one done, gets his first win inside the UFC. And next up, we have Yana Santos taking on Macy Chiasson. Carlos, who you got in this matchup?
With Macy Chiasson in this one, she's taller. She's got the longer reach. She'll fight on the outside. She's got a lot of movement. She's a little dangerous with elbows and knees and the clinch. I think she's a little bit more physical of the two. I think she's a little meaner in the pocket. And Santos, though, she's been looking pretty aggressive in her last couple of fights. She's been imposing herself on her opponents in the clinch game. She's been, kind of bullying her opponents around. I just don't think she's going to be able to do that against somebody like Chiasson here. And the threat of the takedown, Chiasson I don't think she's going to have to worry too much about the takedown, which makes me think even more she's going to be able to dominate this fight because Santos, her striking isn't very smooth. She just walks in a straight line when she's throwing, and Chiasson's got some angles, uses her reach, keeps her fighter at distance, and as much as Santos is going to want to clinch, I think Chiasson is. She's got a big frame for the weight class, and I think she's not going to be bullied around. So I think that if Santos wants to make this fight boring and keep her clinched up against the cage like she likes to do to her opponents, she could. I don't think she can even implement that. I think Macy is not going to allow her to do that. So yeah, I'm going to go with Macy in this one.
Yeah, I've never really been a big fan of Macy Chiasson, if I'm being honest, but I think this is a great stylistic matchup for here. Yana Santos obviously coming off that victory over Miesha Tate. She was able to defend the takedowns of Miesha Tate, but I think that Macy Chiasson is much bigger, much more physically dominant. I think this fight's probably going to be a bit of a boring one, if I'm being honest. I think Macy Chiasson's going to look to clinch up against the fence with Santos, really just hold her there, beat her up with knees, stomp on her foot. It's going to look like Usman Masvidal. That's the way I picture this one. Santos's kickboxing is decent, but I think that the range, the lack of size here against Macy Chiasson is going to give her troubles. I just think it really comes down to the fact that Macy Chiasson is the much bigger, more physically imposing woman in this style fight. And I just think that Santos isn't going to be able to kind of throw anything out there to get Macy Chiasson to stop walking her down. I think the forward pressure of Chiasson is going to be all it's going to take. She's going to be the aggressor in the judge's eyes. If she does get caught, she's just going to jump right into the clinch and hold on to her. I don't think that Santos has that stopping power, and I don't think that she has any weapons that Macy Chiasson have to be really worried about. 35 years old, respectively, as well. I mean, I know Macy Chiasson is also 34 herself, but I just think here that this game plan is just going to be, get her in the clinch, beat her up. And I know people are going to say, obviously she's just coming off that loss to Ketlen Vieira. Ketlen Vieira is a much bigger, more physically dominant woman than Macy Chiasson is, so she couldn't implement that main game plan. And I think when Chiasson can bully you, get you up against the fence, I think that's when she has most success. And I think that's exactly what she's going to be able to do here against Santos.
Don't let her bully your son.
And next up, we have Daniel Santos taking on Joosang Yu. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this matchup?
Well, as much as I like, Sang Yu, I'm going to go with Daniel Santos in this because he's a technical striker, more of a boxer than anything else. And I think he's the more aggressive of the two. Takes more chances, which leaves the openings for Sang Yu. And he always ends up, he always has his guard up, and he doesn't block very effectively. And that's what kind of bothers me in this one, where he does use his head movement every now and again, and he does keep a high guard, but the punches go straight through the guard because he doesn't stiffen up on contact. And he moves his head before anyone throws punches. So he uses it, but it's not very effective. But he is tough, and he does get inside. And when he gets inside, he does go to work, and he throws combinations. He's the biggest puncher? No, but he, in combination, he can hurt you. Now, he can take you to the ground, and he can impose himself down there as well. So I would love to see him try to get some takedowns, make Sang Yu have to think about a couple other options in this fight. Sang Yu, things that get me is in combination is how Santos throws, but Sang Yu actually comes in and he keeps his hands down, kind of by his chest, so he leaves himself exposed and his chin up. I don't know if Santos is going to be able to exploit that, but Sang Yu's also got to be able to exploit the opening when Santos comes in as well, because the opening is going to be there if you throw straight down the middle. I'm going to take Santos because he's a little gritty. He's got the experience in the octagon. I'm not saying Sang Yu's not. I just haven't seen it. So I'm going to take Santos. And like I said, I'm not too confident about this one because Sang Yu can crack. And but I'm going to stay with Santos.
Sang Yu impressed me. In his last fight, obviously him taking on Sergey. Obviously Sergey not necessarily known for being a high-level UFC guy. I get it. obviously a nice step up in competition here against Daniel Santos, shooter box fighter, very aggressive. But one of the things we know about aggressive fighters, they leave openings at times. And in Santos's previous fight against the other Asian gentleman whose name eludes me at this current moment, the Korean Tiger, I believe his nickname is you see in that fight, there's plenty of openings for a slick counter striker to be able to capitalize on, and that's exactly what Sang Yu is, the baby Korean zombie. The guy 9-0 has great takedown defense, spinning kicks. I don't want to say Conor McGregor-esque or Roofy-esque, but that hands low bouncing style. The guy's very impressive. I was impressed when I watched tape on him the first time, and I think he gets it done here. I think that I'm going to be on the Sang Yu train until until this train kind of falls off the tracks. I was impressed with him, just his striking, his ability to kind of counter strike. I think he's special. I think that this guy is definitely a guy that, as Michael Chandler would say, see you at the top. I think we could see this guy at the top. I think he's got all the skills. I think he's the next big thing. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. But to me, Santos obviously 3-1 inside the UFC. He can mix in grappling. He can go a hard 3 rounds. He's never been finished before as well. I do think this is a good test, but I just think that when you see these shooter box fighters being aggressive like they are against a slick striker who we can see can counter strike, and a guy like you, I think that that's going to be a recipe for disaster. So give me you to get another knockout here, and I keep on ascending and see you at the top. Saying you here getting the knockout victory against Daniel Santos. I think it's going to be an impressive win again. And next up, we have Farid Basharat taking on Chris Gutierrez, El Guapo. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to take Basharat in this one. I want to take Gutierrez because I like him. I like his style. But against high-level grapplers, he struggles. And Basharat, he can strike. Is it great? No, but it's basic, it's fundamental, and that's usually what people struggle with. So I'm going to go with Basharat. I think he could probably just distract El Guapo here with a couple strikes and get into a body lock, shoot for his legs, and get the takedown, get him up against the cage. I think that once down, Gutierrez probably doesn't have since he hasn't yet, even against the cage, he doesn't have a way of getting back to his feet. So, it's a short breakdown for me. I'm going Basharat.
Yeah, we saw in Gutierrez's performance against Kwang Lee. Even Kwang Lee, who's not necessarily known for having the wrestling and grappling, was able to take Gutierrez's back in moments of that fight. We've seen in the Sexy Mexi performance in their previous fight, although he was able to win that fight, we saw, he was, having to defend takedowns. And I think that Basharat here knows where his bread is buttered. He knows that he can grapple. He knows he's a much better wrestler than both of those two previous opponents. And I think his move over to American Top Team, I think it's a smart decision. Obviously 13-0, undefeated confidence. The guy can strike, the guy can grapple. And I think the grappling is what he's got to lean on here. Obviously 6 years younger as well. He's got a little bit of a reach advantage also. And we know with Chris Gutierrez, he likes to light up the calf, but he can't light up anybody's calf if he's laying on his back or he's got his back taken. So I think Basharat here, kind of just wrestle fucks him for 3 rounds. And even if he does a good job of mixing in some striking and then level changes here, I think that'll be best served for him. Use all the different facets here of MMA. I think this one goes to the judges' scorecards. I think we see Basharat winning a dominant decision with his grappling. That's why he's a big favorite. It makes sense to me. Gutierrez getting up there in age as well. I just think if this fight plays out on the feet, that Basharat really is just kind of selling himself short. He's got to obviously mind the P's and Q's with the calf kicks of Gutierrez, but ultimately I think Basharat wrestle fucks him for 3 rounds and stays undefeated and goes to 14-0. And next up, we have Andre Muniz taking on Edmen Shahbazyan. Carlos, grappler versus striker. Who you going with?
I'm going to go with Shahbazyan in this one. I think Shahbazyan's takedown defense should be enough to keep him on the feet and punish Muniz from there. Muniz is not the most resilient after getting hurt. And for being a grappler, his wrestling is not really that strong either. Like, he's able to get takedowns if you just keep going for him. And he looks to be a strong guy, but I just feel that Shahbazyan is going to be able to stuff some of these takedowns, make him pay on the feet, and I don't see Muniz. I don't see him defensively being able to stop anything Shahbazyan's going to throw at him. I also see him shooting out of desperation, which is going to make Shahbazyan see it even easier because Muniz, when he gets tagged or he gets rocked or too much pressure, he'll reach with his arms first, and then his body comes through for the takedown. And he's always getting pushed off that easy because you can see it coming. So I'm going to take Shahbazyan. Now, my whole thing is the longer this fight goes, I would like to say it's good for Shahbazyan, but because I have seen Muniz gas out a little bit, but Shahbazyan's been known to fade a little bit as the rounds go. This is a 3-round fight. Hopefully by the third, Shahbazyan's got him out of there before then, but if not, Muniz could probably pull out an upset. I don't even think that would be an upset, but he could pull out an upset. But I'm taking Shahbazyan, and I almost talked myself out of that. I'm still not convinced he's going to win, but it's 50-50.
Yeah, to me, the way that I look at this fight is each guy's weakness is the other guy's strength. So it'd be interesting to see how this one does play out. And that's why I agree with Carlos's last statement there, that I don't even think that either of these guys win. I don't necessarily think it would be an upset. I just don't trust Muniz's chin. That's what this fight really comes down to. We've seen with Shahbazyan in his last two fights, Andre Petrovsky, wrestler, Budka, obviously a wrestler as well. He did a good job of defending those takedowns and ultimately landing his strikes, which is what he's known for. Good kickboxer. The guy's obviously very talented, still only 27 years old, training out of Extreme Couture. The guy's got skills, there's no doubt about that. He didn't really live up to the hype early on in his career, and I think that he's ascending in the right direction right now. Whereas when you look at Muniz, he's kind of been on the wrong end of a few different performances. Obviously, him getting KO'd by Ikram Aliskerov, not a good look, even though Ikram does have a lot of power. Muniz is just a guy I just don't trust. 35 years old. He doesn't seem to be able to get fights to the ground consistently, winning a split decision over Park as well in a fight that was very back and forth. You could argue that he lost that one, and that would be 4 losses in a row to top-level guys. I just think you can't trust the guy's chin for the course of 3 rounds, and you can't trust him to get fights to the ground consistently. So he has to be able to withstand whatever Edmen Shahbazyan throws at him in the first round, hopefully wear on Shahbazyan, and hopefully last to the second or third round, where we've seen Shahbazyan not necessarily quit but struggle in fights. I just don't think it gets there. I think Shahbazyan is either going to find the knockout here or just beat up Muniz so badly that he's even if he does get to the judges' scorecards, there's no doubt that Edmen Shahbazyan's won this fight based on the striking. So give me Edmen Shahbazyan to get this one done. The Golden Boy is going to win 3 in a row here inside the UFC. I think Muniz probably gets cut. Unfortunately, guys, Gautier, this fight is no more against Ozzy Diaz. Ozzy Diaz has pulled out. I have just seen on Tapology that this fight has been cancelled. However, they've had a late notice replacement here for Gautier to butcher on the feet, but they've got a guy called Vanessa. 3 of his losses have all come via knockout. I think we all know what that means. Gautier, is an absolute powerhouse, physical specimen. The guy has KO power, and I think that this short notice replacement, even just looking at it, I know Carlos probably hasn't had an opportunity to look himself, but Tristan Vinez, all 3 of his losses have all come via knockout. This seems just like a placeholder for a guy that they can just put in front of Gautier for him to knock out. Skilled kickboxer, physical specimen, KO power, baby Francis Ngannou. Spells only one-way traffic for me. Is there anything that you want to say about this matchup, Carlos, or this fight now that it's been cancelled?
Saw it. I was hoping you got it too, because I just saw it right before you did. But Ozzy Diaz was gonna go to sleep, and poor Vines here is gonna go to sleep too. But Gutierrez, he's talented. Needs more time to develop, and just needs another body. And they found him another victim, and hopefully he gets this one done. And I don't know anything about this kid, but I don't think there's going to be anything because Gautier's got the power, the strength. He's still getting very technical each time, and his cardio is holding up. Hasn't been breathing heavy even in some of his longer fights. So, yeah, he's a problem. So, easy breakdown, Gautier. That's it. That's all I got.
It's murder.
I was going to say, That's what I was gonna say. Gautier by murder, but what like this?
Yeah.
But we don't pray for that here at Ground and Pound. We don't want that. So.
Amen. And next up, we have Abus Nurmagomedov taking on Joe Pyfer. Be Joe Pyfer, as I like to say. Carlos, who you got in this matchup?
I am going with Mr. B, Joe Pyfer, because Abus is going to come out very tough, very physical in the first round, very snapping strikes, and got a lot of snap on him, a lot of whip, and they're quick and they're straight, and he looks very impressive in round one. But come round two, after he throws a couple, maybe a minute, 2 minutes in, he starts to fade, and he looks a little sloppy, and he's a little tired. I don't know if there's anything he's going to be able to do about that. It kind of sucks when you see that with a fighter who looks so good, but then in the next round, his cardio just doesn't hold up. But Pyfer, same thing, dangerous first round, second round, third round. You don't have to worry so much about the power coming back at you, but you do have to make sure you don't just stand there, because if you stand there, he's going to throw, he's going to hurt you. Not like you would in the first round, but he is going to hurt you. And I feel that Abus, if he can implement a lot of his grappling, it would be to his advantage. The problem is he gets even more tired the more that he grapples. So I don't really know what Abus could do to change the outcome of this fight. Like hopefully his camp has a couple other backup plans, but I don't see Joe Pyfer losing this one. I just see Abus getting gassed after the first round. He's not going to take Joe Pyfer out in the first round, and he's going to lose this one.
Yeah, I share the same sentiments that you do, and I think both of these guys are actually renowned for slowing down in fights. I just think that the difference here is that with Joe Pyfer, when he slows down, he has a good first round, he comes out, he hits you hard, good physical specimen, mixes in takedowns. He can crack power in the hands, good kicks as well. The difference with Pyfer to me is that, when he slows down, he goes into second gear. Whereas when you look at Abus, he pretty much just comes to a screeching halt. His first round is good, but he literally just falls off of a cliff when it comes to his cardio. I agree. I think 35 years old as well in this matchup doesn't pay dividends. Much more experience, but that's also tread on the tires. Does he take punches well against Pyfer, who is a guy that, has power and can set up his shots? When you look at Michel Pereira doesn't necessarily have the skill and the technique to be able to set his shots up like Joe Pyfer does. I also think that Pyfer, if he wants to, he could mix in the grappling here early in round one, like he did against is it Judo Thunder in that one of his previous performances. Really take the power away and the cardio away from Nurmagomedov, even if it's just wearing on him up against the fence, just to take that cardio to the next level, and Joe Pyfer can push a pace later on in the fight. I think he may even try to do that. I think realistically this comes down to the fact that Nurmagomedov it just doesn't have the cardio to keep up with Pyfer over rounds 2 and 3. If the first round's close, I think Pyfer takes 2 and 3. If he wants to mix in the grappling, I think that would be best served for him. I know he trained over at in Philly with some of those killers and the grapplers over like Sean Brady at one point as well. I agree with Carlos. I think this is a fight that Joe Pyfer should win. Against his previous fight when he fought against Calvin Gastelum, he did slow down. He did give Gastelum a little bit of an opening in the third round, but he pretty much had that one in the bag, from start to finish. So I think a similar performance here. Nurmagomedov, I don't see him being able to get Pyfer to the ground consistently for 3 straight rounds. So give me Joe Pyfer here to get this one done. And next up, we have Josh Emmett taking on Youssef, the Road Runner Zalal. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this matchup?
I'm going with Youssef Zalal in this one. Zalal's movement's going to be key to victory, as is in most of his fights. Emmett, difficult to hurt, loads every shot that he throws, so Zalal should be able to see it coming. He has sharp counters. He's waiting to return fire and then get out of there. It's not the most exciting to watch, especially because he's not getting the big finishes. But he is getting the job done, and it's not what people want to see. But getting in there, he's not taking any damage. And, the speed is something that they're going to have to deal with, and the elusiveness. So I'm taking Zalal, and Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a very entertaining fight. He's not going to get into a firefight with him. As much as Josh Emmett is going to try to close the distance, he just doesn't have the speed to keep Zalal right in front of him to land the shots that he wants to. So, Youssef Zalal. That's who I'm going with.
Yeah, Youssef Zalal, I give him a lot of shit because of that Calvin Kattar fight dancing around on the outside. But at the end of the day, he does what he has to do in order to win. And this fight, very, very confident in him here. When you watch Josh Emmett, he wants to be able to land with power. He wants to be able to plant his feet and throw everything into his punches. He wants to be able to knock you out and replicate that Bryce Mitchell knockout that he had in previous fights. And Youssef Zalal's not going to be there to be landed on, and he's going to dance around on the outside. He's going to pop. He's going to stick. He's going to move, and Emmett's going to be in pretty much in cement when it comes to his footwork. If you thought the Calvin Kattar fight was frustrating to watch from a fan perspective, I think this one's going to be even worse. If Josh Emmett mixes in takedowns, he might be able to get Zalal up against the fence and kind of force the action a little bit. But we saw in the Yair Rodriguez fight that Yair was able to throw up a triangle and submit Emmett off of his back. Zalal has great scrambles and great jiu-jitsu himself, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's another path to victory that Zalal could obviously take advantage of. But I think Zalal here does the same thing he did to Calvin Kattar. He dances around on the outside, he throws the jab, he scores points, he wins unanimous decision. Emmett tries to load up and swings at air. Obviously as well with Emmett, losing 3 of his previous 4 fights. Obviously 40 years old. He is on the chopping block. He might take a little bit more risk and ultimately find the knockout of Zalal. But I think here, 11 years his senior. I don't think Emmett's really going to be able to get a hold of Zalal, whether it be in the wrestling or on the feet. So give me Youssef Zalal here to win by unanimous decision, or maybe he pulls off the upset or a surprise victory with a submission. But I'm going to go with Zalal by unanimous decision. Boring, but he does what he has to do to win. And next up, we have Yuri Prochazka taking on Khalil Rountree. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who you got in this matchup?
I am taking Yuri Prochazka in this one. Roundtree, he should be able to rip Prochazka's lead leg since he likes to have a wide stance, forcing him to stay more stationary so he can land the big shots, whether it's like, overhands or kicks, whatever he wants to throw, knees. But Yuri's crazy. He takes chances and, he reaches, he lunges when he punches, he keeps his hands low. Leads with his head when he comes forward, wide stance, minimal head movement, doesn't try to block or keep a high guard. And so far, the only person that's been able to exploit that has been Alex Pereira. And, mainly that's because they're around the same height, same reach. And I think Rountree's going to find that to be a little bit difficult just because of how Yuri's movement is. Now, Rountree's been looking good as of late. I mean, he gave a pretty decent showing against Alex Pereira, and I thought that the fight kind of went the way that I thought it would go until Pereira just started beating the crap out of him. But I just don't know how he's going to catch Prochazka with maybe a high kick and an overhand right that's going to put him out, because Prochazka's a tough guy, and unless he got old overnight, he's going to be able to take a couple of shots and he's going to get in your face, because sometimes he'll be losing a fight in the first round, and then second round he's losing the fight until he's not, and that's just what he does. That's what Prochazka does, and very unorthodox, and you never know where the strike's coming from. You don't know what he's trying to set up, and there's nothing too flashy about it. He just has a little bit of crazy, and it's a little bit more than Roundtree, I think. So I'm going to go with Yuri Prochazka in this one.
Yeah, I said to Carlos before we went live that I think sometimes with Yuri Prochazka breakdowns, you have to kind of throw a little bit of logic out of the window. The guy literally does have such an unorthodox style. The guy is very unorthodox in his training methods, and just look at the hair. It's unorthodox. But the way that this guy fights, it's very, very much a forward pressure, break you with, undeniable will. I think at times that he gets his front leg chewed up to pieces. Guys are landing on him, and he just kind of shakes his head and just says, I'm just going to keep walking through that until I break you. And we've seen with Roundtree, obviously, in that Alex Pereira fight, Alex was able to kind of break him down methodically. It'll just be interesting to see if Yuri Prochazka can break him down mentally and kind of in his style of being a little bit wild. With Roundtree, like Carlos said, he did have a good showing against Alex Pereira. Obviously, his Muay Thai, kind of Thai style, I do think that his calf kicks are definitely going to be a big weapon here against Prohaska, but I just don't really like the hands of Roundtree. I think when Prohaska comes in and he's kind of leaning in and being unorthodox, you need to be able to pop him with the punches. I think Roundtree's kicks are his best weapon, and I think that with Prohaska, he'll walk through those calf kicks. He'll just continue to eat those, and if he wants to mix in grappling, he can as well. Give me Yuri Prohaska here. I think that the thing with Roundtree is at 35 years old, I think that he beats a lot of guys. I just don't think that he beats the guys that are mentally willing to kind of walk through, walk on Lego, walk on lava, just take risks, like Carlos said. I think that Yuri Prohaska is a guy that still has it. I think that he's a guy that can mix in takedowns in this matchup, and I think that he's got a little bit more crazy. I think that Roundtree at this point, he's a skilled guy, but I think that he doesn't have enough crazy to beat a guy like Yuri Prohaska. So give me Yuri to get this one done and ultimately get on the mic and maybe even call out a rematch with Alex Pereira. They won't probably give him. And that brings us to the co-main event. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Corey Sandhagen taking on Merab Dvalishvili. Are we seeing Ann new, Carlos? Or are we seeing Ann still?
I'm going to go with Ann still, and I like Corey Sandhagen. I like his work ethic. The more that he talks, I've seen him on some podcasts. The more that he talks, his mind is working on how to be a better fighter all the time, how to condition, how to train, how to eat, how to prep, everything, and how to game plan, strategize, tactical, everything. But I just feel Merab, his stand-up has gotten just good enough where if you're worried about his takedowns, he's going to stick you with something. And it's not going to be the hardest thing, but it's going to make you think, I got to watch out because now he's actually landing. And, he gets you up against the cage, you're going to get taken down. He's going to take you down. Now, Sandhagen has that, I can't remember what it was. He was talking about the position he had against Figueiredo. I got to say, that's probably his only way of winning is if he can get Merab in that same position where if you don't give into the position, then you're going to blow out your knee. And I don't believe, I do believe that Merab has probably been studying how to stay out of that position. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to put Sandhagen in a couple of bad positions himself. Now, Sandhagen's wrestling has gotten a lot better. I think he's going to spend a lot of time defending, and I think he's going to be able to get back to his feet. But he also doesn't have that power that can keep Merab back. And even if he had the power to keep Merab back, so did Peter Yan, and so did Sean O'Malley. And he just found a way to just slip past whatever strike it was and get to the inside and get the takedowns and, go for the wrestling that he wants to implement. And I see it going the same. I don't know when it's going to happen because I know there's going to be a point where he's going to slow down. I just don't see it happening Saturday. I love you, Sandhagen, man. I think you're an awesome fighter, and I think as a person, I think good. Love the mind that you have for fighting. I just don't think you're going to win this one Saturday.
Yeah, I share the same sentiments here. Merab Dvalishvili, the guy's a machine, and he's nicknamed that for a reason. And until I see him slow down or his cardio falls off a cliff or we see him get chinned, I'm just going to continue to pick him here, pretty much blind. When you see Sandhagen, like Carlos mentioned, student of the game, the guy's got a great mind for MMA. You watch any sort of video about him and he talks about MMA, the guy is, very, very methodical in the way that he breaks down fights, breaks down positions. And when you look at Sandhagen's skill set in this matchup, I think the only two ways I see him being able to win this fight is, he lands that flying knee that he landed on Frankie Edgar when Merab, comes in for a takedown and puts the lights out. Or maybe Merab shoots him for a takedown and the long, limbs of Sandhagen snatches up some sort of guillotine here and puts Merab out. But other than that, I think Merab is just so unstoppable. His cardio, his pressure is just too much for a lot of people to handle. And like Carlos mentioned, Piotr Yan is a great striker, and Merab just keeps coming forward constantly and just doesn't let you really get going. And to me, Sandhagen, he does have one punch power, he does have knockout power, but it's more of a being able to time a shot up the middle. And with that knee, that's the only real weapon that I see that he can land on Merab. And we've seen with Merab, he gets chinned at times. He gets, pretty much nailed and clocked, and he just keeps coming forward relentlessly. So give me Merab Dovalishvili. He's a machine for a reason. He's nicknamed that. And I think that we see Anne still again. Another title defense to Merab, and I think we're going to start looking at who can he really face as he's kind of clearing out his division at this point. So I think we see Merab keep his belt again, and that brings us
machine.
And that brings us to the main event of the evening. We've got Alex Pereira taking on Magomed Ankalaev 2, a rematch I know a lot of people called for. But Carlos, who are you taking in this one?
Oh, boy. All right, well, I don't know exactly what the injury was. I think I asked you earlier. I don't know if you knew it, that Pereira said that he had that slowed him down in their last fight. But I kind of have to go with Ankalaev again because I think he's got the boxing. Defensively, Pereira does not, defensively block punches very well. And if Ankalaev would open up in combination a little bit more, I actually think he could have probably put him out, but he didn't do that. He threw 1 to 2 punches at a time and just kind of stalked him whenever Alex went backwards. Alex, the only thing I think he could do differently in this fight is if you see the opening, go for it. The problem with that is if you go for that shot and you see the opening and you're not 100% precise with that shot, Ankalaev's going to start threatening the takedown, and then he's going to get it easier because you're catching someone when they're fully extended into a strike. Something Alex is going to be prepared to defend at the same time as throw the strike is, as I throw it, think he's going to change levels. I got to get some underhooks. I got to start fishing for these hooks. I got to get a whizzer, anything to keep himself on the feet. Whereas Magomedov doesn't really have to worry about that. Alex is not going to take him down. And if Alex does take him down, he's probably going to find a way to get back up without exploding back to his feet. I'm sure he has good technical stand-up as well. I'm going to go with Ankalaev. I think the boxing is a little bit crisper. I think his defense is a little bit better, and I don't see too much of this. I don't see it being any different from the first one, unless the output of Pereira is a little bit more, because he just kind of fought going backwards in the first fight. So, yep, Ankalaev.
Yeah, that's a nice segue for me to kind of talk about how I see this fight going too. I just think if you look at that first fight with Pereira, it's the output that really bugs me, and I don't know if it's the injury like Carlos mentioned. I don't know if it was the threat of the takedowns from Ankalaev that he was worried that he's not going to be able to defend the wrestling of Ankalaev, but he definitely didn't look himself. He definitely wasn't throwing as much out there as he has done in previous fights, and I'm going to go with Ankalaev as well. It's tough because I think that Ankalaev just has more ways to win. If you look at the defensive boxing of Ankalaev, he has good head movement. He also can kickbox and stand there with Pereira on the feet. And he has the threat of the level change as well. And I think with Ankalaev, he knows that he can mix in the grappling at any moment. Pereira has to be wary of that. And I think Pereira it's one of these fights where Pereira needs to land the kill shot. He needs to be able to land something to put Ankalaev out. And we're relying on him to be able to find that shot, whether it's the uppercut as Ankalaev comes in for a level change, whether it's that nice setup left hook that he's got, whether it's the head kick. It's tough because I'm just not going to pick a fight based on the fact that I need Alex to land the perfect shot, because we know with Ankalaev that, he has more skills, more ways to win the fight. I think when Pereira doesn't find that shot, the longer the fight goes, I think it suits Ankalaev a little bit more. If Ankalaev wants to mix in wrestling here and kind of tire out Alex early in the fight, we know that Pereira has a big weight cut, even for 205. And I just worry about Alex here as well, 38 years old. They're talking about how, in his previous fight, he was doing a lot of media obligations. He was traveling a lot. These just sound like a lot of excuses to me at the end of the day. He was preparing for a fight against arguably one of his toughest opponents. He knew that he was coming to fight Ankalaev. These two have been going back and forth. There's bad blood between the two. I think Ankalaev wants to make a statement this time and really put a stamp on this one. And I think the only way that Pereira wins is to be able to find the chin of Ankalaev, which we've seen him do in the past. He's obviously got a lot of power. He's big for the weight class. It's definitely a possibility. But when it comes to, gun to my head, making a pick, I'm going to go with the guy that's got more ways to win here in Ankalaev, that's more well-rounded, more MMA experience, and ultimately wants to, show that the first one wasn't a fluke. And if you remember in that first fight as well, Ankalaev spoke about being on Ramadan and, kind of fasting and all that. I haven't heard that be an issue in this one. So if anything, that also might suit him. He might come out with a much, better performance than he did in the first one. But rooting for Alex, as always, fan favorite, one of the best walkouts. One of the best, in terms of the UFC, a guy that they're talking about in the Hall of Fame, obviously already, but give me Ankalaev here to get this one done. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button for UFC 320. I'm excited for this one. A lot of stacked fights on this one. And Carlos, before we wrap things up, is there anything that you want to say to the people?
It's going to be a fantastic card. Can't wait for it Saturday. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, hopefully a lot of KOs. That's what I'd like to see. And if you guys like this, just, enjoyed what we were discussing here, remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, keep an eye out for some of the videos coming on the channel. We've got best bets videos. We've got the dog of the week. You name it, we've got it here on the channel. And we'll hit you guys up on the next one. Check us out. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.